Okay, we're going to go with Holy Grail Wisdom Quotes by E.P. Rogers, alphabetical order. Next is E.B. White. He wrote Charlotte's Web and whatnot. My favorite line in it was, "Why did you do all this for me? I don't deserve it. I've never done anything for you," he said. And Charlotte said, "You have been my friend," and that in itself is a tremendous thing. Yeah, so that's true. Somebody who stands by you, especially in a difficult moment, that's valuable. Okay, I thought that was nice. Next, Ellen G. White, co-founder of Seventh-day Adventist Church. Seventh-day Adventists are famous in the nutrition world because they promote eating a plant-based diet. They're a little variable in what they eat, but they often eat plant-based diets. There's a lot of them out in Loma Linda, California, where a lot of research has been done about them. Okay, she says, "You will never reach a higher standard than what you set for yourself, so set the bar high. Step by step, ascend the ladder of progress." Yeah, little steps is how you make progress. You don't make it in big leaps typically. "Whenever God is in the hearts of men, it will flow out to others in a beloved blessing. The greatest want of the world is the want of men. Men who will not be bought or sold. Men who in their utmost souls are true and honest. Men who do not fear to call sin by its name. Men whose conscience is as true to duty as the needle to the pole. Men who will stand for the right, though the heavens fall." Yeah, what's happening is masculinity is being crushed in America. It's being destroyed. Men are being feminized, and real men, noble masculinity men, are being called toxic masculinity. And you can't. And it's been done on purpose to collapse society. You can't have a successful society without noble masculinity. That's what makes it work. Okay. Women are more focused on the short term. They're focused on themselves and on their kids. They're not going to run society. If you read back through history, read 5,000 years of history, and you will never, not once, ever see a bunch of women that I'm aware of that defended their city and prevented it from collapsing. No, they're going to go with the flow. That's what they always do. It has to be the men. And the men have to stand up and say, the West is the best, and we want to continue it. We don't want to destroy it. There's nothing to replace it. Nothing. Literally nothing. Except chaos and, brute force. Okay, Drag Queen Story Hour, is that going to replace the Bible? Anyways, our next person here for quotes is George Whitefield, the preacher. He said, "Congregations are lifeless because dead men preach to them." Yeah, the churches have all been kind of trashed because of 503 exemption rule. They're afraid to say anything interesting or they'll lose their tax exemption. They should get rid of their tax exemption and just tell the truth. They'd have 10 times as many people. "It's a poor sermon that gives no offense." Okay, and we got one more person, Alfred North Whitehead. He's the big philosopher out of England who was friends with Bertrand Russell, co-author on their book about mathematics. Okay, so here's what he says. He says, "Intelligence is quickness to apprehend. Moral education is impossible apart from the habitual vision of greatness." Basically, you want to teach kids morals, you got to teach them religion. To teach them religion, you got to teach them when they're young. So you have to teach religion when kids are young. And it's actually the most important thing to teach them if you want them to develop well intellectually. Okay, moral education. Okay, like all family quarrels, the falling out between science and philosophy has been a disaster for both. Yeah, philosophy after the 1700s switched from being connected to theology. It sort of switched to being connected to so-called science. Okay, he continues, Alfred North Whitehead, "Not ignorance, but ignorance of ignorance is the death of knowledge. Civilization advances by extending the number of important operations that we can perform without thinking about them." Yeah, you got a machine, you can drive a car somewhere so you don't have to worry about the horse. Fundamental progress has to do with the reinterpretation of basic ideas. Yeah, like I told you, atherosclerosis is a blood clot. Once you get that, you understand atherosclerosis. Okay? Diabetes is primarily caused by high-fat diets, especially saturated fat. So anything that increases blood lipids is going to increase diabetes, which means stress, sleep deprivation, caffeine, for example. Okay? A clash of doctrines is not a disaster, it is an opportunity. Okay, then here's a good one. This one, I've used this one a lot. Get your knowledge quickly and then use it. If you can use it, you will retain it. That's why as soon as I have a big insight, like I figure something out or I get an interesting case and I look it up and there's something really interesting about it, I call one of my doctor buddies on the phone and say, "Hey, what do you think of this case? Blah, 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 blah." The reason is once you discuss that case, it becomes locked in your mind. Like when I was an up-and-coming doctor, I would always volunteer to give conferences. People are like, why do you want to give the conference? You're going to have to stay late. And I would do it because it would motivate me to read. So I was constantly going through all the complex cases, and it really helped me to develop a file set in my brain. Like let's say I've got whatever number of doctors reading one type of film. If there's 5 reading one thing, 10, 20 reading another thing, and then I go through all the cases for the month on that topic to give the conference, I'll have gotten as much experience as 5 or 20 people. You get it? So you want those things, especially when you're up and coming, young in your career. Now I got a lot more experience. Let's see. He says, what is morality? It is what the majority then and there happen to like, and immorality is what they dislike. Yeah, nowadays, morality is a lot of times what big money wants, okay? Big money nowadays says that anal sex is a sacrament and that regular sex is a sin, okay? That's just what big money wants. That doesn't mean that's how you as an individual probably think. No period of history has ever been great or ever can be that does not act on some sort of high idealistic motive. And idealism in our time has been shoved aside, and we are paying a penalty for it. Yeah, Christianity is being eradicated from the public sphere, but there's nothing to replace it except brute force, and that's what is coming. Take a look at England. Watch some videos of what's happening in Britain. You'll be sad how Europe's being destroyed. Okay, Alfred North Whitehead. In formal logic, a contradiction is a signal of defeat, but in the evolution of real knowledge, it marks the first step in progress towards a victory. The power of Christianity lies in its revelation, in the act of which Plato divined in theory. Okay, that's the idea of, Nietzsche said that Christianity is Platonism for the masses. Alfred North Whitehead. All of Western philosophy is but a footnote to Plato. Okay, his next quote. The Protestant Reformation was one of the biggest, most colossal failures in history. It threw overboard what makes the church tolerable and even gracious, its aesthetic appeal, but it kept its barbarous theology. Yeah, the Protestant Reformation, I think for the most part, was a disaster. I would agree with that. There were some good things. Bach probably would have been magnificent whether or not Germany had gone to Lutheranism, okay? I'm glad they kept music. I'm glad that Luther allowed the priests to get married, but for the most part, it was a disaster. Protestants are good about getting people to read the Bible in the vernacular, but they allow secular rulers to take over, and the secular rulers just destroy the church. Look at what they did in England, the Anglican. Henry VIII, who bumped off half his spouses, was the head of the Anglican Church, the founder of the Anglican Church, and then he just robbed and looted all the monasteries, and he didn't even care about the books. He was just a thief. He wanted the land. The Protestants threw the Celtic crosses into the sea. They destroyed many sculptures, paintings, and stained glass windows called iconoclasm. They said it was idolatry. It's stupid. Okay, Alfred North Whitehead. It takes an extraordinary intelligence to contemplate the obvious. Yeah, like you talk to the average doctor, all they know is hypertension is this drug, atherosclerosis is this drug, diabetes is this drug. They have no sense of what is causing it, what's happening at a biochemical level, and that's where you get the valuable information, because when you understand what causes a disease, you know what to do, what to avoid to prevent it. Okay, Alfred North Whitehead. Art thrives where there is a sense of adventure. As society is now constituted, a literal adherence to the moral precepts scattered throughout the Gospels would mean sudden death. When I read history, I want to know where I am. The date should be at the top of the page. Actually, he's right. A lot of history books will just give you the date, in one chapter, and then they won't mention it again for 50 pages, and you don't even know what's going on. The literary side of a technical education should consist in an effort to make the pupils enjoy literature. It does not matter what they know, but the enjoyment is vital. The great English universities, under whose direct authority school children are examined in the plays of Shakespeare, to the certain destruction of their enjoyment, should be prosecuted for soul murder. Yeah, the most important thing is a kid likes to read, so they'll keep reading on their own, that they view it as useful, not just as a painful thing you do to take a test. Okay, style, he says, in the finest sense, is the last acquirement of the educated mind. It is also the most useful. It pervades the whole being. I would disagree with that. I'd say as a person gets older, the big thing is that they develop judgment. Style can come along when you're younger. You got personality, you put a little fun into your writing, but judgment is somebody who's been around, got old school, long-term knowledge. It is rigid dogma that destroys the truth. Dogmatism is the antichrist for learning. Okay, every really new idea looks crazy at first. The silly question is the first intimation of some totally new development. Okay, that's it for quotes today. Hope you found that helpful.